Good evening. I would like to call the Monday, February 15th meeting of the Cumberland County Board of Commissioners to order. Welcome, everyone. At this time, I would ask Commissioner Jeanette Council if she would do the invocation followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand.
For a moment, please.
Please stand.
Heavenly Father, we come to meet tonight on behalf of the citizens of Cumberland County. Our hearts go out to all those families that are touched by COVID, the people who are suffering, our first responders, our medical workers, all of our citizens. We come together tonight because we are a member of this family, this governing board. The seven of us work together very closely to try to make the very best decisions that we can. We understand that you understand all, and we are trying to adhere to your word. We thank you for Heart Month. Remind our citizens about the Heart Month and the COVID and getting their second shot. First shot, then second shot. Dear Lord, thank you for all thy blessings. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
liberty and justice.
For all.
Before I ask the county manager to begin, first of all, I'd like to thank Commissioner Council for that prayer, and also she indicated in her prayer regarding the individuals that are suffering with COVID. We want you to please be mindful to protect yourself by wearing your mask, washing your hands, and staying 6 feet apart, because as she said, we do care about each other. At this time, I'd like to call our county manager.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good evening, Commissioners. This brings us to the public comment period. This is an opportunity for citizens to share concerns with the Board of Commissioners. We set aside a maximum of 15 minutes. Each speaker will have a maximum of 3 minutes to give their remarks. We ask that as each speaker comes forward, they give us their name and their address at the lectern. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Madam Manager. Madam Clerk?
We have one speaker signed up this evening, although I'm not sure whether she's present, Miss Kathy Greggs.
Ms. Grace, if you're in Griggs?
Griggs, G-R-E-G-G-S.
Kathy, thank you, sir. Kathy Greggs? Okay.
We have no further speakers.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Madam Manager.
Yes, sir. Item number 1 on the agenda is approval of the agenda.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Vice Chair.
I think we need to pull item 4, the Cape Fear Valley Health System Board of Trustees, or we can divide it. There were 2 for the, 1 each for the doctor position, but there were 2 people for the at-large position.
Yes, sir. Mr. Commissioner Adams, we left that item under the agenda session as a record of what happened. If you look under item number 6, 6C, the Cape Fear Valley Health System Board of Trustees is handled under the appointments.
Yeah, I have
So
the same
what is-
concern because
so what is that up under the-
says consent. It says to put this on consent.
Yeah, so what is 4 under O, approval of County Board of Commissioners? And it has number 4 after the Alliance Health Board of Directors. It had Cape Fear Valley.
Yes,
Is
sir.
that
Cape Fear Valley Health System Board of Trustees vacancies on item 4 under item, number 4 under item H.
So we can scratch that one and just do it up under the item of business? It shouldn't be in both places. I'm lost.
So the item number 4 is actually the discussion that happened at the meeting, which was the nomination. You're actually,
Okay, I
that
got you.
approves the nomination under the consent piece.
Okay.
And then you're moving to the appointment at the end of the agenda.
I got you.
Okay, so the
Yeah.
approval that we make with item
Yeah.
4 in here is with the consent agenda to approve the discussion that we had during our agenda
And the
session.
nominations.
And the nomination.
Yes, sir.
Got you.
I had the
I
same
got you.
thing, and could we put review or something instead of, put it under the consent agenda with approval of, and then 1 through 12? It makes it look like it's getting moved from the agenda, and all 12 of them are being moved to the consent agenda, because it says, it goes A through N, and then the
O.
top of it is over there is O. So if we're going to approve the consent agenda, it's under the consent agenda.
Yes, sir, that's correct. So all items that move forward from the agenda session are under consent unless they're specifically moved to an item of business or unless it's not a unanimous vote. So actually, 2O, 1 through 12 are under the consent agenda.
Okay, and I think what Commissioner Booth is saying, that in opposed to the item under the consent agenda, should we consolidate that with the item of business? We should? Okay.
No, actually, at your Thursday meeting, you talked about the nominations. And normally, we have nominations at one board meeting and appointments at the next. The board appeared to be ready to do the nomination Thursday. You're ratifying that action today and then moving to the appointment.
Okay, yeah, that's when, yeah.
Because if you,
Commissioner
just for one clarification, under your rules of procedure for the agenda session, you don't take action. The only action is to move it forward to the next meeting.
Yes, yes, ma'am, I do remember that conversation that we had, and Commissioner Adams said that we would vote on this tonight, so it's just a part of what
It
we
is
did
a
at
little
the agenda
confusing.
session. Okay, you got,
Yeah,
everybody got that?
I just think that Commissioner Keefe was just talking about, you did O and then did all of those numbers, which all are just easily just being, keep on going down, O, F, G, H, I, and just do all of it as consent, but that's fine.
Okay,
It's good.
so now we're still at item
Motion.
2.
Well, I'm here to move to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second? Second. All in favor?
Unanimous.
So
Thank-
that brings us to item number 2, the actual consent agenda. So I believe that motion was for approval of the agenda,
Agenda.
and now we're on item 2, which is the actual consent agenda.
Okay, we'll get it right here.
Well, let's go back, because I did say consent agenda.
Yes.
Approval of the agenda,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, and then
Now-
somebody can second.
Let's take the vote for approval of the agenda.
Unanimous.
There you go.
Okay, now we go to
The
item 2.
consent
County.
agenda, item number 2.
Item number 2. Are there any, let's get a motion to approve.
Approve the consent agenda.
Second,
Here.
Commissioner Council, all in favor?
Unanimous.
Okay. Madam Manager.
Yes, sir. Item number 3 begins our public hearings. Tonight, we're going to begin with the contested rezoning cases. The first case is case P2101.
Okay, Madam Clerk, are there any speakers?
Mr. Chairman, would you like Mr. Howard to review the details of this planning case, sir, first?
Yes, I would. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Good evening.
Good evening,
Commissioners.
sir.
Thank you. The first item that we have under your contested that was mentioned is case P2101. You can see by the location map above. Let me make sure I got this organized appropriately. So the case that you can see above is actually in the what's known as the Bethany area, as you can see with the star that's indicated up on the location map for the county. So the applicant and the owner is Mr. James and Beverly Fisher. The agent is Mr. Ben Stout. The request itself is to go from A1 agricultural, which is just so you know, is a 1 unit per 2 acre zoning classification for mostly residential, to R40, which is for the most part is 40,000 square foot lots, and it is a conditional zoning, so that means that there is a site plan that is attached to this request. And so the total acreage is sitting at about just a little over 30 acres. So for those of you that may be familiar with the area, there's the Wade-Stedman Road that you can see here that runs north and south. So the request is actually bisected by this road, and it includes these two parcels that you can see that are highlighted in red in the crosshatch on both sides of the road. So when you look at the subject property and what's around it, so when we do our land use analysis, we generally try to give you an idea of what's sort of around in the area. The areas that are colored in the solid yellow, the areas that are colored in the solid yellow indicate a single-family residential. It's typically a stick-built home. You can see that there is a church out there which is colored in the blue, and anything with the yellow crosshatch is generally going to be a manufactured home of some kind on the property. Anything that doesn't have a color is generally indicated that it's vacant or it's wooded or there's nothing really on the property. You can see the existing zoning that sits out here. So for the most part, you do have a scattering of R40 on the western side of Wade-Stedman Road. You can see that there's some R40 to the south and to the west and to the north of the property. And on the east side of the road, you have a little bit of R40, but for the most part, you can see it's generally R40 and A1. So you have acre lots, and then you have properties that allow 2 units per acre. I'm sorry, 1 unit per 2 acres. I get that confused, sorry. So when we look at the utilities out there, you can see that there's PWC Eastover water that services the area. There is no sewer, so the majority of this area is on septic. I would like to point out that the area to the west that you can see in the majority in the green and the blue is pretty much covered by a lot of wetlands, and there is a lot of topographical and drainage areas back there, but you can see that covers basically just the back little point of the property. So when staff looked at the land use plans for this, it is split by 2 different plans, and I know that a lot of you commissioners know that we're in the middle of working on our Bethany plan right now, so that's in the works. We're tentatively looking at taking that to the planning board in April. We're right now trying to work out some small details in relation to lots and development for this particular area, but it is forthcoming. But the existing plan that is governing for this area is our 2030 plan, which was adopted, I believe, around 2008-ish, 2009, somewhere around there. That's on the eastern side of the road. On the western side of the road, it's governed by the Eastover plan, which was adopted relatively recently, I believe in 2018. So basically, when you look at the policies of both, when you look at what is recommended for lot size, it does recommend 20,000 square foot. As far as the types of lots that would be allowed on both. So even though they have 2 plans and they're pretty much similar designations on both sides of the road, both of those designations call for 20,000 square foot lots. So to give you a little bit of history behind this, because I know we have some people that are here to speak on this, but about a year and a half ago, we had this same property come for a rezoning. At that particular request was an R20 at that particular time. Staff actually felt at that time that the R20 was not really in context with the area, so we had recommended as an alternative recommendation to the planning board to go to R40. So that got pushed to the planning board, and I know at that time there was a different developer. It was not this developer at the time who was on as a part of that request, so I would point that out. So it went to the planning board with an alternative recommendation. The planning board ended up supporting staff with the R40 recommendation. However, between the planning board and the Board of County Commissioners, that case got withdrawn by the applicant and it sort of died, and then that triggered the 1-year waiting period for them to come back, which is why they're here this evening 1 year later. So when we saw the request again, staff is standing by that, the plan calls for 20,000 square feet. We are supporting the recommendation that we gave a year and a half ago of an acre lot. But when it went to the, so we feel that the request is plan compliant, just a long story short of that. You can see this is generally the subdivision plat that you see here. Pretty straightforward. You got 26 lots sitting at 2 cul-de-sacs with common open area sitting at the end. You have common open area here. I would say that this is a zeroed lot line, but as you know, most of the time the zeroed lot lines is where they kind of consolidate and try to get smaller lots and then create some open space. For this particular case, the developer is taking advantage of the reduced setback or flexible setback standard. So the 26 lots that are allowed would also be allowed if this was not a zero lot line development. So I just wanted to point that out. So there's not a density question here as far as it being zeroed lot line. It's more dealing with the setbacks and trying to get flexible setbacks on each one of these lots. So this is the subject property. As you can see, this is standing on the east side of the road looking west. This is one of the two houses that you see. This is the other house that sits right beside it. This is looking north on Wade Stedman Road. You can see our zoning sign there on the road to show we are in compliance with state law for rezonings for posting. This is standing on the west side of the road looking east. You can see it's pretty much a farm field at this particular time. This is looking south. Again, there's our zoning sign. And if I'm going too fast, please tell me. I'll be glad to slow down or go back. So again, staff had recommended approval of the request. When it went to the planning board, there was a split vote for this request of R40 conditional by 5-4, but ultimately the planning board had recommended a denial of it by that vote. So if you have any questions, I'll try to answer what I can, and I believe the applicant is here, this evening. So,
Yes, Commissioner Booth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Could you put the site plan back up again? There you go. What are they as they're set right now? What are they set up as? What is that? I mean, what is the space? How big is lot 17?
I believe they're all sitting at acre sizes, yeah. I mean, because if you account for road and open space, if you look at 30 acres at 26, that's going to be 26 acres, right? So when you take out road and the open space requirement, you're sitting pretty much at acre lots right now.
Okay.
Are there any more questions at this point?
Yes.
Yes, Commissioner Keith.
Thank you, Mr. Howard. Do you have some questions on the conditional zoning? What are the conditions right now?
The approval of the site plan.
Okay, that's it, right?
Correct.
So I heard a lot of concerns from citizens. I am not a fan of zero lot lines in rural areas. So be willing to talk about that conditionally. And I'm also not a fan of the R40 designation where developers can combine a lot of the homes in one single area based on the overall size of the lot. So can those be concluded in conditional zonings to where developers are not able to do that?
If the applicant agrees, based off what I understand of your request, I think that that's not unreasonable.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Are there any more questions at this point? If not, I'll open the public hearing. Are there any speakers, Madam?
This evening, we have 3 speakers signed up in favor, 2 speakers signed up in opposition. Our first speaker in favor is Mr. Ben Stout.
Okay, Madam Manager, would you explain the rules, please, for speaking?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the zoning hearing time limit policy. Arguments by the proponents and opponents shall be limited to a maximum of 10 minutes for each side. If there is no group representative, each speaker shall be allotted a maximum of 3 minutes until the 10-minute time limit is attained. Rebuttals will only be permitted at the discretion of the chairman with a maximum of 1 3-minute presentation by each side.
Thank you, Madam Manager. First speaker. Okay, first speaker.
Thank you for your time. My name's Ben Stout. I live at 2507 Spring Valley Road in Fayetteville, North Carolina. And I'm going to defer my time to Mr. Charleston, who I think is lined up to speak. Is that permissible or impermissible? Or if you have
Okay,
any questions
yes.
for me.
That's fine.
I think he maybe should have spoke first and me later, but so I'll just defer my time to him if that's okay.
All right, thank you, Mr.
Okay,
Stout.
thank you so much.
Next speaker.
Our next speaker is Mr. Scott Brown.
Welcome, Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, board members. Again, Scott Brown, 409 Chicago Drive, Suite 112, Fayetteville, North Carolina. I'm the village civil engineers and surveyors for the project. I was watching the YouTube as far as the planning board meeting, so I was aware of the discussions that the planning staff had and the chair, the board members had on the planning board. Can I take this off for as far as speaking? That way ain't some muffled sounding in this thing. I think a couple of the biggest concerns from what I understand, and I'll be quick and then turn it over to the attorney. A couple of big concerns were stormwater and water, as far as potable water. We have had the water tested as far as the fire flow test by ESD completed there on Wade Stedman Road. It met the minimum requirements for the state, and we have in process of submitting that to public water supply now with NCDEQ to get our water permit. ESD has approved the plans, and the state is working on completing their review now. As far as stormwater, these are 40,000 square foot plus lots, talking about 26 lots on 30 acres. These are not your standard 10,000 square foot lot. The maximum build out on this piece of property is 24%. It is a low density project considered by the state for Division of Water Resources. So if you take 30 acres times 24%, that's going to give you maximum impervious. That will include your streets, any rooftops, driveways, sidewalks, etc. The project is limited to 24%. And if you review the plan or familiar with the plan, some of the residents or some of the people here tonight may not be. There is an infiltration basin up at Wade Stedman Road on the east side of the development. I understand that there was a lot of concerns for water overtopping Wade Stedman Road in that area and flooding it out. DOT is reviewing that now. The state's also reviewing it, but that's something that we've added that was not required by DOT or by stormwater. But it was something we felt was needed for the functionality on the east side of the project. So, and that's what that CA2 is there next to lot number 1. That basin is sized for a 10-year storm event. In the event that that basin fills up, it will spill over and sheet over into the existing NCDOT road drainage. So with that being said, I'm going to cut my time off so the attorney can speak unless the board has specific questions of me at this time or later.
No, sir. Thank you for this.
Mr. Chair? I have
Yes.
just one. All right, you said the 24%.
Yes, sir.
A couple times. Is that 24% that's not buildable?
24% that can only be built on with rooftops or buildings, asphalt, pavement. It's 24% impervious, which would leave 76% pervious, open ground, grass. So it only can put 24% built on. It's a low density project.
Okay. 76% of the 30 acres is 22.8?
That will be left open.
How are you going to put 26 lots on what?
Structures and roads.
We're talking about the structure now, the footprint of the rooftop, the
Right.
footprint of the street, the footprint of the driveway.
Right.
That maximum build out is 24%.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any more questions? All right, Madam Clerk.
Our last speaker in favor is Mr. Jonathan Charleston.
Welcome, Attorney Charleston.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the Board of Commissioners. My name is Jonathan Charleston. My address is 201 Hay Street, Suite 2000. I'm here tonight on behalf of the owners of the subject property located at 2647 and 2673 Wade Stedman Road. My clients have an interest in developing the approximately 30-acre tract of land into a residential community of 26 houses, all situated on approximately 1-acre lots with conditions that are approved by the Board of Commissioners. It is important to point out, ladies and gentlemen, that the owners if approval was given for their request, could develop 27 lots and build homes on each of them. Instead, the owners only desire to develop and build on 26 lots, with the smallest lot size being .92 acres. The proposed use is consistent, as you heard from the planners, with the 2030 Growth Vision Plan, which calls for rural areas, and the Eastover Land Use Plan, both of which apply. Notwithstanding the many notes that and emails that you received, the governing document, the governing plans are in place. The 2030 plan and the Eastover Land Use Plan govern this site. A substantial amount of the land, as mentioned earlier, that's in the vicinity of the subject property involves either R40 or, in many instances, half-acre lots. So if the commissioners tonight decide to approve the request of the owner, it will not change in any consequential way the character of the community. In fact, the character of the community will retain its rural characteristics. Like all of us, the Fisher family seeks the highest and best use of the subject property, and in fact, property owners have the right to do that, unless the proposed use places an unreasonable burden upon the adjacent property owners. This is simply not the case here. However, in the system that is established, the property owners can object to proposed rezonings based upon cogent evidence. In this case, the objections, and there are many, consistently state that the proposed land use will adversely affect water flow, land conservation, green spaces, schools, roads, postal service, and wildlife. And I'll tell you, each of the objections that are in your package fits into that category. However, there's no evidence in the record to support this. I'll continue on the second 3 minutes, Mr. Chairman, with your permission.
I'm sorry, say it again.
There's a second 3-minute spot, and unless you object, I'll just continue.
For Mr. Stout. For Mr. Stout. Mr. Stout,
Right.
you've heard this time.
Yes. Yes, sir.
All right. So the one thing that's factual is that the character of the community will remain rural, and that there is less than a 1-month supply of available houses for purchase in Cumberland County, in this part of the county, in the 250 to 300,000 range, which is what is proposed. In fact, there are only 5 houses available for sale in the Cape Fear School District in that price range today, right now. As all of you know, the demand outpaces significantly the supply of available housing in Cumberland County. So what we're doing, what we're saying tonight, is that we urge each of you to approach this request logically, as you've done in other cases. We believe that when you consider this request on the merits, it's reasonable, and it makes perfect sense to grant the property owner's request. In fact, the Board of Commissioners, in following the 2030 plan and other applicable plans, have approved rezoning requests from A1 to R40 a number of times over the last 2 years. I won't take your time and go through each case, but I have the minutes of each situation where this Board of Commissioners approved this request over the last 2 years. And I think there's probably about 7 or 8 times that it's been done. But notwithstanding what the planning staff has recommended and what you have heard tonight, the opposition is asking the Fisher family to shoulder the entire burden of their property to minimize the impact on them. So I ask you tonight, should the Fisher family be forced to bear the entire burden to retain the rural characteristics of that area, which in fact won't change under the proposed request? Or should the Burns family be denied the right to reasonably develop their property to its highest and best use? Respectfully, I would say the Board of Commissioners should grant the Fisher family request because there are no objectionable characteristics associated with the proposed use. There is no evidence that the rezoning of this property will have any appreciable adverse effect on surrounding uses, and therefore, on behalf of the Fisher family, I respectfully request that the Board of Commissioners grant this request. And ladies and gentlemen, I also have, if you care to see, I can identify each one of those cases that was similar where this Board of Commissioners, in contested cases, approved requests for rezonings from A1 to R40. And I'll answer any questions and reserve the rest of my time to do so.
Are there any questions for Attorney Charleston? If not, thank you, Mr. Charleston.
Okay.
Are there any more speakers, Madam
Yes.
Clerk?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to reserve the balance of my time for rebuttal if that's
15
permissible.
seconds.
Wait,
It was 15 seconds.
yeah. It was 15 seconds, sir.
15 seconds and 1 minute.
No, it was
Yes, Madam
We
Clerk.
have 2 speakers opposed to. Our first speaker opposed to the rezoning is Ms. Robin Bridges.
Welcome, Ms. Bridges.
Thank you, Board. My name is Robin Bridges. I live at 2886 Wade Stedman Road. You have handouts from me if you'll follow along. This case is a reapplication from late 2019. This is the same out-of-state investors fronted now by a local builder. The Joint Planning Board denied this case in no small part to the over 63 emails and 185 petition signatures you have in your packet. Most residents keeping COVID safe are not appearing here. A1 is a rural lifestyle for Bethany. We are home to many large and small farms. The case map on page 5 shows the adjacent farms colored in green. We already have within 0.8 of a mile 2 new subdivisions, 178 families and potential families who call this stretch of road home. I've listed our objections on the next page. Conflicts. Yes, conflicts with the 2030 growth plan, disrupting the rural character and sustainability, water issues, housing density, and infrastructure. I've also detailed by paragraph the objections to the growth vision plan on page 6. Bethany is waiting for you to protect our area. Hear our voices. We have no Bethany land use plan. We've been waiting for over a year, despite being told we were a top priority. We are an overwhelmingly rural area, 95% in fact. On page 10, you see several adjacent farms who would face serious negative impacts by this subdivision. Remember those green areas? One is a voluntary ag district. Farm life next to R40 does not mix. These next pictures show our quiet area along Wade Stedman. Due to the proximity of Big Creek, there are many water issues with this site. Water flow is directly through and across the Fisher property. Farmland drains, concrete doesn't. Many new septic tanks will introduce new toxins to those of us on wells. The roadway floods and storms, and even with a retention pond, maintenance will be needed and could be costly to homeowners and the state. Page 16 shows current standing water on adjacent properties and water flow from Big Creek. Page 17 shows standing water on the 2 new subdivisions. You can see it's already a struggle. I have a full-size topographic map showing the elevations. The Fisher property is fed into by lower elevations and water often ponds right there. It is a mess. We are a community who embrace new residents, not a drawbridge one. Any change to the current A1 is not suitable. I have included examples of R40 subdivision, Bethany Farms, and the newest A1 subdivision in Bethany, New Hope Church, for comparison. The addendums show the upcoming text amendment, which we beg you to wait for before deciding on any new growth in Bethany. It includes much-needed buffers and green spaces. We have several ongoing ag programs, and some Stedman land use plan guidance is attached. I speak for a group, so I know I have a little bit of extra time, 5 minutes, right? Finally, I've included...
Excuse me, ma'am, I'm sorry. You say you have many more minutes? I'll let you finish what you're doing now.
I just have a couple sentences more. Finally, I've included some builder reviews. They are especially important since they cite erosion and plan preparation issues. In short, this is a poor site for a new subdivision, and we need you to hear the almost 250 strong voices of our residents and deny this request. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Our
Madam?
next speaker in opposition is Mr. Stephen Bullard.
And we reserve any time that Mr. Bullard doesn't use. If you'd like to see the map, I have it here, the top part.
Hello, Mr. Buller. Welcome.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I'll take the mask off, Rick. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Stephen Buller, and I live at 6132 Adidas Street, Wade, North Carolina. I was born and raised in this area and have lived in this area for 44 years, and my family's been there for over 100 years. I ask that you deny the request to change the zone from A1 to R40 involving this tract of land. I grew up farming, but for the past 25 years, I've actually been in construction. Now I'm a department chair at Fayetteville Tech Community College under Engineering Applied Technology. There are two major factors when it comes to construction. One is that the structure is a well-built structure with no corners cut and the structure is appealing to the eye. The other is building different types of structures in the right location. And building a residential neighborhood in a rural agriculture forestry area does not belong, just as building a swine or poultry area does not belong next to a residential area. The people that lived in this rural agriculture areas enjoyed the rural outdoor lifestyle. One of the major things that the people that's been raised in this area enjoys is hunting. I myself and many others are avid dog hunters, which is one of the oldest traditions in the world. We enjoy hunting all types of wildlife with hounds such as quail, rabbit, squirrel, fox, raccoons, and bear. Putting residential neighborhoods will stop this tradition and any ways of living for the people that's been living here in this area for many years. I ask, why should people that do not even live in this area be able to change the traditions of the people that live out here? In 2009, Cumberland County had a 2030 growth vision plan, and in it states that its objective is to promote and protect the preservation of the farmland in this area. Changing the zoning to R40 is neither. It's actually doing the opposite and destroying it. So again, I ask you to deny the request to change this tract of land from A1 to R40. Thank you for your time, and God bless.
Thank you, sir.
We have no further speakers.
No further speakers? Close the public hearing. Are there any questions or comments?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Keefe.
I have a couple comments, and before we go any further, I just need to make some things very clear. I do not believe that this is an R20 like it was originally asked last year. I do not believe it's anywhere close to being an R. I don't believe. I know there was a request from the developer to be able to build on one per 20,000 square feet. Right, that was the request. I don't like the term zero lot line, especially in rural areas, but I am looking at one house per acre does maintain some bit of rural part, but I wouldn't do it without conditions. And before I make a motion, I'd want to know if some of the conditions would be met by the builder. If that's okay with you, Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
The first condition I would have is that setbacks would be required, and setbacks would be required at a level that's consistent with other low-density areas of 35 feet on each side and 50 feet on the front and back. That will take away the opportunity for zero lot lines on the condition. I would also maintain, because R40 can be a tricky thing, and because if there's non-buildable sites, developers can consolidate parcels, I would make a condition that no house be under one house per every 40,000 square feet. And the last thing is, there is a discussion about water runoff and retention ponds. Retention ponds are always tricky, and they're supposed to be maintained by the homeowners association. But I think we've all seen where homeowners associations sometimes don't do that, and they don't maintain it. So I'd have to put a condition on there that the homeowners association has a responsibility to maintain, to restrict water runoff through the retention pond, and if a homeowners association does not do that, that the property owners can be assessed for the county to do that.
I guess the builder would have to agree.
Those are my conditions to support this.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. And I think that's reasonable, and we have no issues with that at all.
You have no issues with any of the setbacks or any of that?
No, sir.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Vice Chair.
And Mr. Keefe, I do like, because I'm not a zero lot line guy either, but I tend to find that developers do homeowner associations and walk away, and then the people who are living there are the homeowners association, and they bear the brunt of this. I don't know how anybody agrees that you pass that on to somebody else. I don't,
Yeah, that'd be part of the,
that is a
part of
problem.
the deed, part of the deed.
Because, yeah, it can be a part of the deed, but, it comes back to haunt us. One of the questions I had was, did we talk to the school system? Because I'm looking at Eastover is at 540, 388. Mac Williams is at 1270 over 1189.
They
Cape
put their
Fear
numbers
is-
in as a part of the staff report, yes.
Well, I
So
understand,
we-
but I mean, these schools are already over capacity. I mean, I'm just looking at this. This is going to require some building of some schools in that area of the county. It may already require that. If you look at Eastover is just, I don't even understand.
We
how
had
they
this
get
on the planning board, Commissioner Adams. I just want to make sure that we're reading it, because I think some planning board members were getting the numbers.
Is it
just making
backwards?
sure,
Maybe
yeah.
I'm backwards.
So like the Eastover Elementary right now has a school cap of 540. They're currently, according to the school
388.
district, yeah, it's
Oh,
388.
it's backwards. Okay.
Yeah, so then that's the same formula for the other two. So there's a cap of 1270.
Okay.
And they're at 1188 right now, and Cape Fear is pushing it. It's 1425, and they're at 1427.
I
so,
got you.
Yeah.
And I guess the only other question I had was, if you go back to, keep going, I guess. That R40, all the R40 in the green in the back, that's wetlands, isn't it? I mean, it can't
It's
be
a lot of wet
developed.
areas,
I mean,
yeah.
it's not even, and can you tell me when that R40 was put in place? It was about 20 years ago?
The R40 or the R40A?
The R40 and the R40A. I thought all
Well, the
that was done
R40A,
about-
according to our records, and I know the attorney probably has more accurate information. I believe it was sometime in the mid to late 90s is when
Back
that
in the 90s?
subdivision- Yeah.
And the R40 just came along with it?
That
guess.
I don't know. I don't have
I
that
mean,
information on that one.
okay, because we're talking about the quality of everything that's out there, but in essence, that R40 back in the back can't be built on, and I think even the back part of that R40A has some water back there. Yeah, I mean, it's just, okay.
Yes, sir. Like, before we move on, Commissioner Keefe, I just want to make sure, because I have somebody here recording your conditions, and then you mentioned specific numbers for setbacks. Do you mind repeating those, just so I make sure that we're clear?
35 on the sides and 50 on front and back.
Okay, thank you. You got that, David? Okay, thank you.
Okay, are there any more discussion or questions?
Just-
Yes, Commissioner Booth.
This has been an ordeal, to say the least. I've been out to the property twice. I went today, and it was a little different, but I went about several weeks ago when it was dry, and it was still damp. Today, it would be unfair to take pictures today, which I did, and use those as a basis, because I'm surprised we don't have water in here. So, but it's wet. The state maintained ditches are full. The containment ponds out there already are overflowing, so it's wet. I've spoken with the builders, I've spoken with the residents, I've spoken with the fire department. I got the information from PWC on Eastover water issue. There's not enough pressure in the Eastover thing now for them to have the firefighters draw off it. They have to tote their own water to every fire. There's nowhere for them to tap onto because there's not enough pressure to put out a fire. I think Eastover's at a point where they're either going to have to spend a ton of money improving it or shut it down, because they're about at one more spigot, being able to give everybody some water pressure. I have a question. I didn't have all the conditions on like Jimmy did, but one of the biggest things that bothers me is everything else we did have, we at least got to refer to some sort of plan. Some of them we referred to were old. We don't have anything here, and that was kind of a big part of the reason from a year ago, and then it was supposed to have a site plan, and now you're saying that it'd be probably April. I read the minutes of the meeting. and I saw where Chair Wheatley asked, could it be deferred just until they had a plan? It was gonna be March, April, whatever it was, that might get the plan moving faster, because I didn't find anybody, I think one of the quotes, first time I've seen was tonight from the lady, don't remember her name, but there wasn't anybody saying, we don't want new people in the area. There wasn't, I didn't get any of that. What they didn't want is any more problems with the land they already have, whether they bought it, inherited, or whatever. They don't want any more problems than what they're already dealing with. They have a single lane road that floods, there's no street lights out there, and my question then would be, why don't we defer this until there's a plan?
It's up to you as a board. I guess actually it would be up to the applicant what he wants. I'm sitting here speaking for him, so I don't want to do that.
I don't think the people out there are unreasonable. I haven't gotten that, but there's no plan. Nothing's really changed in a year because there's still no plan. In fact, there's probably more water.
Mr. Chair, while they're conferring, can I mention, may I?
Yes, sir.
You know, what has happened, I'm looking at these other R40 things, and obviously what happened on that R40A, because those lots look smaller than what the lots are going to look like. And because what they did is they played the R40 game, and that's what I'm trying to do with my conditions, is not allow them. So they took that whole parcel, and because a lot of it was wet, they consolidated all those homes down there into smaller homes that are now, and I don't know if these are zero lot lines, but they're probably on top of each other, and they're obviously not one house per every 40,000 acres. So that was the intent of my conditions to go forward. You know, I do believe that in a rural environment, going below R40 is probably not in the best interest of any rural area, but R40 with conditions is how I would support it. But that R40A is exactly what I'm trying not to have it done.
Yeah, and just to answer your question, that is a zero lot line, and those are about half-acre lots.
Yeah.
So, because we did the research
Again,
on that
my conditions are valid.
Right.
Okay. Mr. Charleston, is there something that you wanted to say, sir?
No, I was just going to say that we would prefer, Mr. Booth, that not to defer this matter just for a number of the contractual things that we have in place. So we would ask the commission to respectfully move forward on this. Thank you.
And thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, ma'am.
The opponents that spoke are asking for requesting a rebuttal, and that's completely up to the chairman. And if you so desire, it's limited to a maximum of 1 3-minute presentation on each side.
Okay, let's have the rebuttal.
So the R40, R40A, those were zoned in 1994 before we went through all of this esteemed process. What we're really overlooking, the water is very, very important, but there's a voluntary ag district, there's a beef farm there, there's a hay farm, there's a North Carolina licensed chicken producer there, there's actually three beef farms, there's pigs, all around there that I colored in green on that slide number 5 and on page 10, a voluntary ag district. People who you bring them in there, it's just a poor site because you bring those people in there, you're going to potentially interfere with the livelihood of these farmers who, you know, people aren't going to like the chemicals, they're not going to like the smells, they're not going to like the sounds. A1 people, when you buy into an A1 lot, which they're perfectly can build right now with no opposition, that you recognize that you're in a farming community. And that right there is a farming community, and that water comes right along Back Creek where you see that line. He's not going to be able to even fit half of those homes in there on the Eastover side because it's wet. It's really wet. Those homes in R40A, that subdivision has 8 people right now who are considering recourse with their builder. Toby Lane up at the top, it has water in the back. There's pictures in my presentation of it. The water I mean, I didn't take those pictures today, I took them a couple days ago. The water is already saturating the ground. Farmland will drain, I don't care if it's 76, 24%. You add that concrete in the mix, it's going to run off those impervious surfaces. There's a reason why our new text amendment and a land use plan will say you need farmland within farmland, and that you don't want all those impervious surfaces to hinder that. Do you have anything, Steve?
Okay.
Miss-
No, ma'am. I don't think anyone, Commissioner Adams.
And I just need to have I got a question for the attorney. Mr. Morefield, and I see it says to R40 residential / CZ conditional zoning. Does that allow us to put these conditions on, or is that a board of adjustment or action?
The CC zoning designation on there means it requires a site plan, would have to be approved by staff.
So my question, can we add these conditions?
Now, that would be, I think they've already agreed to that, that's my understanding. These would be additional conditions in that, for the CC zone. These would be the conditions that Commissioner Keefe suggested would be additional, but my understanding was that the owner was agreeing to this.
Yeah. I think any conditions that get added has to be agreed upon by the applicant in order to take effect.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
The applicant is also asking for your permission for his 3-minute rebuttal.
Okay.
I won't take 3 minutes. Again, thank you so much. I'd prefer not to get into a back and forth, but I do think that it's important for this to be noted. Again, I understand the concerns. Part of what Cumberland County's done is any time that there's I guess, some type of a residential near agricultural, the following statement has to be placed on the plat, so there's full disclosure in regards to this, and it says the following: this property or neighboring property may be subject to inconvenient discomfort and the possibility of injury to property and health arising from normal and accepted farming and agricultural practices and operations, included but not limited to noise, odors, dust, the operation of any kind of machinery, the storage and disposal of manure, and the application of fertilizer, soil amendments, herbicides, and pesticides. So, again, feel like trying to work, and that would be on the plat, so that there's no skirting that issue about what you're buying into. And again, as Commissioner Keefe has said, we are trying to do the opposite of what's going down the green. That's not what we're trying to do. That's not what we're about. It's specifically why, that's going to be on the plat, or proposed plat. It's specifically why, like Mr. Brown said, where we're trying to go above and beyond and put a pond to regulate that stuff and capture that. The hydrology, which I'm not a super smart person, but some of the super smart guys who we hire to do this, who are soil scientists, the hydrology on the east side is literally the best hydrology that you can have, and so it's the top of the line in terms of what you're looking for when it comes to septic fields and that type stuff. So we have come and trying to do it the right way, doing the right thing, and understand some of those concerns, and that's why we try to be so aggressive about addressing those. So that's all I wanted to note, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir. Okay, I think we've heard from everybody. Any more questions or
Mr. Chairman.
comments from the board?
I just want to make sure that I'm clear. It sounds like that he just offered up a condition to add these notes on the plat. Is that something that the board would be willing to entertain and accept? Because we would write that down and make that.
Well, I think he said he had to.
Okay. I just wanted to-
It was required
Okay.
that he put it on.
All right.
Okay.
Oh, and if we're not, I'm happy to do it. I don't want to speak in gospel.
Any more comments or questions from the board? Yes, Mr. Booth.
Would anyone consider doing one side, the perfect soil, as a separate parcel that may actually keep safe, and then defer the second parcel until there is a Bethany plan? Okay, all right, never mind.
Okay. If there's no more questions,
Yeah, I was just going to say, Mr. Chairman, that the applicant is open to the reasonable conditions and agreeable to the reasonable conditions that we've heard so far proposed by the commission.
Thank you, sir. Since there's no more questions or comments, we will now call for motion.
Mr. McCare, I'll throw it out there.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I did. I did. Yes.
Okay.
Everybody was talking, I couldn't tell.
Yeah, yes, sir. Public hearing was closed.
Mr.
Yes,
Chair,
sir.
I'll throw it out there to see what the feel of the board is. In the case of P21-01, I move to approve the rezoning request from A1 Agriculture to R40 Residential with the conditional zoning of setbacks of 35 feet on each side and 50 feet on the front and back, that only one home is to be built per every 40,000 square feet on the lot, and that a homeowners association be established for maintenance of the pond, the retention pond. And should the retention pond fail, if the homeowners association fail to maintain the retention pond, that the county may assess the homeowners for that maintenance fee, and that be included in the deed. And that for a 26 lot, 0 lot line, we're calling it a 0 lot line, but it's not. A subdivision, find the request consistent with the 2030 growth vision plan and calls for rural areas in the Eastover Plan 2018 designation of rural density residential, and requires that any lot within the designation be at least 40,000 square feet. Approval of this request is reasonable and in the best public interest, as the district request is in harmony with the surrounding existing land uses, zoning, and lot sizes. That's my motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Keefe. Is there a second? Thank you, Commissioner. All in favor?
Well, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I just want to reiterate, Mr. Keefe, and I do like your motion, and that's why I think maybe Commissioner Booth was trying to defer it, but I'm just hung up on this homeowners association. I don't think it's going to work. We've had enough homeowner associations. If you start getting some of these emails that we've gotten where these property owners are having all kind of things, and we'll be in the foreclosure business before too long. That's just me. That's just my thought. And so,
And if I may, Mr. Chair, respond to that. And Commissioner Adams, I acknowledge that, and that is why I wanted to put some teeth into this one, because we have both had to work around homeowners associations, which failed. But the homeowners association does have the responsibility of the retention ponds, and they'll also have common areas also.
and the roads.
Yep.
And I'll just tell you, a lake behind my house, on the other side, they had a homeowners association. That lake is empty.
Yeah.
Okay. The motion has been made. There's a second. Let's take the vote. All in favor?
Voting in favor, Commissioners Keefe, Commissioner Lancaster.
All opposed?
Voting in opposition, Chairman Evans, Commissioner Adams, Commissioner Booth, Commissioner Council. What am I doing?
So that,
Could I reconfirm the vote in favor, please?
yes, ma'am, you can.
Commissioner Keefe and Commissioner Lancaster and Commissioners.
I'm changing my vote.
Okay, vote in favor, Commissioners Keefe, Commissioner Lancaster, Commissioner Stewart, Commissioner Council. Opposed? Chairman Evans, Commissioner Adams, and Commissioner Booth.
Thank you very much. Madam Manager?
Yes, sir. Item 3B is case P2047.
Thank you very much. For those, as managers to say, this is case P20-47. This is heading out past Stedman, out toward the Beaver Dam Road area of the county, as you can see indicated with the star on the map. So the request is, or the applicant, the owner is Karen A. Bunce. This is a request to go from A1 agricultural, much like the last case. This is one unit per 2 acre residential and some minor commercial things, to RR, which is a 20,000 square foot lot size. If you guys recall, the applicant was deferred from this board back to the planning board just due to the fact that I believe we were in a COVID stage at that particular time, and they didn't have the opportunity to be able to come to the meeting. At that particular meeting, staff had recommended a denial of the case, and then the planning board also subsequently supported staff's recommendation. It came to this board. The board wanted to get planning board's take on it again, so it went back, and then it was heard again. So it was heard this last time, and I'll just move forward with the recommendation a little bit later. But this is for 22.28 acres. As you can see, this is Beaver Dam Road here. So this is the property sits pretty much at the hard corner of Ava and Beaver Dam, but it is split by Ava Road, so you got parcels on both sides. Again, the subject property is primarily dominated in the area with single-family and manufactured homes. You do have a church that sits out to the back part of the property that you can see highlighted in this little blue square that sits right there. Pretty much all the zoning out here is A1. It sits in a sea of A1. So you can see that going from A1 to a 1 per 2 acre to a 20,000 square foot lot size is a difference that would be noticeable. Just given the fact that there's so much A1 out there. When you look at the soils, there is no water or sewer out here, so it's all on well and septic. There's not really a whole lot of hydric soils except for the parcel that sits on the south side or the southeastern corner of Ava. When we looked at the plan, this property is also sits between two different types of land use designations, but within the same plan. You have agriculture on one side of the road and farmland on the bottom. It does make mention of going to this type of density with a lack of public utilities. It does say the growth and protection of farmland and small-scale rural type of residential. So we feel as staff that it was not plan compliant given all the policies and the map and all the designations that we had in the Southeast Cumberland Land Use Plan. When you look at the subject property, you're sitting on the western side of the road, and then you're looking east, but you can see pretty much it's all wooded. There's no development out there currently. This is looking south view down the Beaver Dam Road. You can see the van, you can see the zoning sign that we placed out there for state posting compliance with the property immediately on the left-hand side. Standing on the property itself and looking across the street, you can see that there's currently a number of single-family homes sitting there. And then, of course, this is looking north on Beaver Dam Road with the property sitting immediately on the right-hand side. So again, staff had recommended denial of the request. We thought that the density was a little too dense out there without the provision of water and sewer utilities. When we took that to the board, they also supported staff's request of denial with also a split vote of 7-2. So if there are any questions, I'll try to answer what I can.
Are there any questions at this time? Madam Clerk, are there any well, first of all, opening public hearing. Madam Clerk, is there any speakers?
We have no speakers for this case.
Fantastic. Close the public hearing. There any calls or questions from anyone? Call for a motion. Yes, sir.
Yes, in case P 20-47, I moved to deny. Did you have a question? I'm sorry.
No, I'm saying he's right. He said this is very similar, because if you look at, it goes across the road, it's a little less than the 30, it's 23, and it goes across the road. There's A1 on both sides. A1, and then what was on the last map really was Swamp 1 and Swamp 1.
Yeah, yeah.
But they were marked as R40. So
Yeah, that's the difference.
This is
Yeah,
just the same
water.
thing again.
Yeah, you had a lot of water on the last one. Yes, sir.
In case P
Commissioner.
20-47, I move to deny the rezoning request from A1 agriculture to RR rural residential and find the request not consistent with the Stedman 2020 and the Southeast Cumberland 2016 land use plan, which designates this parcel of agricultural and farmland respectively. Both designations encourage the preservation of farmland and rural character while only supporting high density if compatible with the surrounding neighborhood uses. Denial of the request is reasonable in the public interest as the surrounding area is predominantly zone A1 agriculture and the subject property lacks access to what I talk about, public water and sewer that could support a higher density.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
And that is unanimous.
Thank you very much. Madam Manager.
Yes, sir. The final contested case is case P 21-03.
Thank you very much. This is in the area of, I guess, more or less the Grays Creek area. You can see just south of, or southeast of Hope Mills city limits. But you can see that it's highlighted here on the star on the map. So this is the Cedar Oaks Circle subdivision. So the applicant owner is Vicky Lashevsky. I'm sorry if I'm butchering that name. But the agent is Clayton Homes. The request is to go from A1 agricultural to R40A residential. So just for those you don't know, R40A with the A after the name, it's the same as R40, but it allows mobile homes within the designation. And the acreage itself is about 2 acres, but you can see that it only applies to this particular home within this subdivision. I'll get into the subdivision and what that looks like here in just a second. So, as I said before, this is a single-family subdivision. The majority of the homes out there are manufactured homes, but there are 1 home per lot, so it's probably fair to say that, this is a manufactured home subdivision with 1 home per lot. You do have a little bit of stick built in there, as you can see, with the solid colored yellow coloring, but for the most part, it is manufactured housing. So, kind of like the last case, you have a whole lot of A1 out there. So again, these are 2-acre lots. So we talked about 2-acre lot subdivisions in the previous case. This is a 2-acre lot subdivision for the most part, as you can see. There are no water and sewer out here. The soils are generally fairly okay for this particular side of the street, but you can see you do have some hydric soils that run through the back part of the subdivision and through the neighboring neighborhood street over here. So the plan calls for 2.2 units per acre, but primarily focuses on stick-built homes. We think that a lot of the homes that are out there, again, a plan is not a regulatory document, it's just a policy document, but the plans were put in place probably prior to the adoption of this plan. But the plan does call for stick-built homes on anything new or constructed out there, and we feel that the plan, that the request is not plan compliant. In addition, staff had some concerns over the fact that there are 2 acres lots out there, so the R40A would allow, for example, to add another group development of a second home on the lot. And there was a reason why I had mentioned that we have single homes on each one of these lots throughout this neighborhood, and you'll see in the pictures in just a second. I think staff had a concern that if we allow a second home on a lot, that it would sort of spring into other requests to come in for more homes to be put on these lots all throughout the neighborhood, and would significantly change the dynamic of that area. So this is the subject property. This is standing across the street of Cedar Oaks Circle. You can see it's currently a manufactured home. This is looking north on Cedar Oaks Circle with the property and the posting, as you can see, with the sign immediately to the left. You can generally see in these pictures, these are large lots with a single home sitting on the large lot. This is standing on the parcel looking across the street, so that this is the adjoining neighbor. You can see, again, another manufactured home, single home on a lot, and this is looking south on Cedar Oaks Circle with the property immediately on the right and the posting of the sign. So I think just for the concern about the plan policy for the stick-built home and the fact of adding a second home in this particular neighborhood, that would change the dynamic potentially for future requests. Staff had recommended denial. When we took that to the planning board, they'd supported staff's request by a 9-0 vote. So if you have any questions, I'll try to answer what I can for this particular case.
Are there any questions at this point or comments? If not, we'll open the public hearing. Are there any speakers, Madam Clerk?
We have 2 speakers in favor, no speakers in opposition. Our first speaker in favor is Mr. Joseph Lazuski. Please help me with your name, sir. Thank you.
Welcome, sir. Welcome.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am Vicky Lazuski's son. We bought that property in 1990. If you look at the map, yes, there are 1 houses per lot, but all the people in that neighborhood centered their homes dead center of their property, which they could not put another home if they wanted to. My family put the house on the front of the property because Mr. Rufus Johnson, that we bought the property from, told us in 10, 15 years we could put another house in the back, so that's why we forced our house closest to the road as possible. Clayton Homes, very happy people out there measuring from home to my new home, if we're allowed to put it on the property, would be 200 feet. I have 40 to 45 feet per side of the house to the property lines, and I have a 60-foot backyard from the new house if we're allowed to put it on the property. I just recently got engaged. I'm trying to keep my family together on the property. It ain't easy for everybody to be scattered around. If my neighbors on either side of me don't have a problem with it, or people in my neighborhood don't have a problem with it, I don't understand. I understand there's an issue with the A1 R40. But the people who have to look at it every day don't have an issue. I don't understand. We have more than enough land. We have room for another septic tank, another well on the back of the property. That's all I have to say.
Thank you so much, sir. Madam Clerk.
Our second speaker in opposition is Ms. Danielle Matthews. I'm sorry, second speaker in favor, my apologies.
Hello, my name is Danielle Matthews. So another reason why we wanted to add the second home to the property is because his 21-year-old son is autistic. He has grown up in that first house his entire life. That's the only house that he knows. Being able to move him back and forth, we are going to take him with us to the new house. But when you have a child with autism, they struggle with change. So if we take him to the new house and he starts to have a little meltdown or whatever, we can walk him that 200 feet back to his original bedroom, and that will calm him down and put him back into a nice, easygoing state. Also, with putting the house on the second property, we do have a printout that they gave us from the manufacturers that are doing the home for us, where they put the specifics on how far away from the other properties everything is going to be located. They also put down where the well's going to be put at, where the septic tank is going to be located, and where the new home is going to be behind the house. It is so far behind the house that you won't even see it from the road. We've spoken to the neighbors that we have. Everybody in the neighborhood already thinks that the place looks like a trailer park anyway. We all have manufactured homes. So it's not going to change the look of the neighborhood. And like he said, even if they wanted to put another house there, they wouldn't be able to because they don't have the room from where they put their original homes. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk.
There are no further speakers.
Close the public hearing. Are there any questions or comments from the board?
Everything out there is A1, but if you turn it to R40, and I know what they say they're going to do with it, but it gives all the uses of a R40 after that point.
And this is an R40A, so.
Yeah, R40A, but I mean,
correct.
You know, even though they, I got you.
Yes, sir, you're correct, Commissioner.
Yeah.
Let's entertain a motion. All in favor? Motion.
Mr. Chairman, in case P21-03, I move to deny the rezoning request from A1 Agriculture to R48 Residential and find the request not consistent with the South Central Land Use Plan 2015, which calls for low-density residential at this location. The low-density residential area designation allows for a density of 2.2 to 6 units acre. However, the plan desires only stick-built homes. Denial of the request is reasonable and in the public interest because the R40A district is not in harmony with the surrounding zoning and existing land uses.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Council. All in favor?
Voting in favor, Commissioners Keefe, Chairman Evans, Commissioner Adams, Commissioner Lancaster, Commissioner Stewart, Commissioner Council. Voting in opposition, Commissioner Booth. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Manager.
Yes, sir. That brings us to the uncontested cases this evening. 3D is case P20-51.
Yes, I'll just be a little bit more abbreviated for these as the standard tradition, unless you want me to open these up for further explanation, if that is the desire of the board. So this case is P20-51. As you can see where the location is, it sits pretty much on the South Main Street as you start getting into I-95. As I said before, the applicant's Frederick Wallace, requesting R6A residential to C2P, which is more of our moderate density or moderate intensity, I should say, commercial designation. This is a conditional zoning. The applicant is wishing to put a used car lot on this particular location. You can see that it sits at the intersection of I-95. This is the off-ramp, and this is Main Street heading up into Hope Mills. It met the plan. Staff had recommended it. When it went to the planning board, it got a unanimous recommendation as well. So if you want me to go further, I'll be happy to, unless you have questions.
Are there any questions?
Just one, and I guess
yeah.
it's near Hope Mills. Did we talk to the Hope Mills Planning Department, the Hope Mills?
We didn't talk to their planning department. Since it's within our jurisdiction, we have the Hope Mills representative, and we had Hope Mills planner come to the meeting to speak on it.
Okay.
Okay, let's open the public hearing. Madam Clerk,
There are no speakers.
close the public hearing. Any questions or discussions by the board? If not, let's entertain a motion.
Hold on, I'm trying to get it.
Mr. Chairman, I recommend, y'all gonna make me do all this, huh?
I'll get
Recommend
the- I'll
approval of
get
the
the next one.
rezoning request from R6A residential to C2P/CZ conditional zoning for motor vehicle sales at January, oh, wait a minute. Did I do the right one? Yeah. Oh, I'm down here. In case P20-51, I move to approve the rezoning request from R6A residential to C2P planned service and retail conditional zoning for motor vehicle sales, and find the request consistent with the Southwest Cumberland Land Use Plan of 2013, designation of mixed-use development as it allows for a mixture of residential, office and institutional uses, as well as general light commercial uses. C2P is designated as light commercial within the land use policy plans of 2009. Approval of the request is reasonable and in the public interest, as it will restrict the property to one permitted use. The property is located at a newly renovated interchange, and the request is in harmony with the non-residential zoning in the surrounding area.
Second.
All in favor?
And that is unanimous.
Thank you, Madam
Case-
Manager.
4E is case P20-63.
Yes, thank you very much. This is also a property that's located on an interstate interchange near Doc Bennett Road. You can see by the star, it sits pretty much in the southeastern area of Fayetteville, off of I-95, which you'll see in the map here shortly. So the applicant owner is Gerald D. and James Pone. The request is to go from MP Plan Industrial to R30 Residential. I believe the request was to put one single-family residence on this particular piece of property. It's just an acre, but you can see generally there's I-95 and there's Doc Bennett Road there. When it went to the planning board, we felt it was plan compliant. The planning board also unanimously recommended it by a 9-0 vote. So I can go forward if you wish me to.
Thank you, sir. Are there any questions coming at this point? If not, I'll open the public hearing. Are there any speakers, Madam Clerk?
There are no speakers.
Close the public hearing. Are there-
Mr.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
you can take it.
Oh, I got it. In case
got all the rest.
P20-63, y'all made me do, I move to approve the rezoning request from MP Plan Industrial to R30 Residential, and find the request consistent with the South Central Land Use Plan of 2015, designation of airport-oriented uses. The airport-oriented uses designation is meant to protect the airport from unwanted encroachment, protect human life, and allow for further expansion. The site will be limited to a single-family dwelling unit or a similar residential use, and will be less density people on site than potential non-residential uses. Approval of the request is also reasonable in the public interest, as the district request is in harmony with the existing zoning and land uses to the north, and the site has access to public water.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
That is unanimous.
Item 3F is case P2104.
Thank you, Madam Manager. Yeah, this is somewhat in the same area off of Highway 301 South, near Brooklyn Circle. As you can see, it's in the southeastern part of Fayetteville city limits, as you can see highlighted by the red star on the map. The applicant owner is Augustin Alvarez on behalf of AJD LLC. The agent is George M. Road. Essentially, they're going from C2P conditional just to straight C2P. I believe that the applicant just told us that they wanted to be able to market the property for commercial uses. It was fully plan compliant. Staff had recommended it, and when we took it to the board, they had also supported it by a unanimous vote. So I'll move on if you feel like the need to.
Okay. Open the public hearing. Are there any questions? Madam Clerk, are there any speakers?
There are no speakers.
Thank you. Are there any questions or concerns? Yes, sir, Mr. Booth.
Mr.
Commissioner
Chair,
Booth.
Mr. Chair, in case P 21-04, I move to approve the rezoning request from C2P Plan Service and Retail CZ Conditional Zoning to C2P Plan Service and Retail, and find the request is consistent with the Southwest Cumberland Land Use Plan of 2013 designation of heavy commercial. The heavy commercial designation allows for uses that provide for the shopping needs of the immediate neighborhood, community, region, and the traveling public. Approval of the request is reasonable and in the public interest, as the district requested is in harmony with surrounding existing zoning and land uses.
Second.
Okay, there's a first and a second. Any comments, questions? If not, excuse me?
You asked for a second.
Yeah, Commissioner Stewart said second. All in favor?
Can I vote?
That is unanimous.
Thank you.
The final uncontested case this evening is item 3G, case P 2107.
Thank you very much. This also sits out towards the Stedman area of the county. You can see highlighted on the red star. Let's see, moving forward. The applicant is Nicholas S. Harrell. The agent is James C. Long, Jr. They're requesting to go from CP planned commercial to rural residential. You can see the highlighted lots in question, but it sits pretty much on Maxwell Road, and this is an interchange of the highway. I think it's a little bit better if I just show you with NC 24. There's a humongous pond out there that I think that you can see with this large swath that was cut through right here. I believe what happened is DOT had plans for that at some point. They obviously didn't act on those plans and put the highway realignment over here. I believe DOT created that pond, how I understand, and so I think they were planning to put some commercial out there. That didn't work, so now they're looking to put homes out there. It's going to be pretty nice looking out the back of that lake, I would say. So it's fully supported by the plans. Staff had recommended it. When it went to the planning board, it was a unanimous vote in support of that.
Thank you, sir. Any comments or questions? Let's open the public hearing. Are there any speakers?
There are no
Madam Clerk?
speakers.
Close the public hearing. Are there any questions or discussions? If not, let's have a motion.
You got your turn.
Thank you, sir.
In the case of P 21-07, I move to approve the rezoning request from CR planned commercial to RR rural residential, and find the request consistent with the Stedman Land Use Plan 2020 designation of suburban density residential, as it requires that any lot with this designation to be at least 20,000 square feet. Approval of the request is reasonable and in the public interest, as the district requested is in harmony with surrounding existing land uses and zoning.
Second.
It's been moved in second. All in favor?
Unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you, sir. Madam Manager.
Yes, sir. Item number 4 moves us to our items of business. 4A is consideration of formal bid award for an electronic health record system for the Cumberland County Department of Public Health. This was an item that has moved forward from the agenda session last Thursday. Our Deputy County Manager, Mr. Holder, will present this item.
Mr. Holder, as always, welcome.
Good evening, and thank you, Mr. Chairman, and to the board. As our manager stated, this item was presented to you at the agenda session, and this is for consideration of the formal bid award for the electronic health record. The current system, as we discussed, that's being utilized by the health department is very inefficient, and upgrades to the system are no longer being supported by the vendor. The county's information services staff has worked in collaboration with the health department staff in the issuance of this request for proposals. and in the evaluation of those proposals. The county received 6 EHR proposals, and the ranking and cost of each of those systems was included in your agenda packet. At this time, our finance and purchasing staff recommend awarding RFP 19-16.is-is2 to curemd.com Incorporated based on the best overall value standard of award established by the North Carolina General Statute 143-129.8B2.
Thank you, sir. Any questions or comments?
Just a comment, Mr. Chair, and I am the reason why it's here and not on consent. And my concern was there had been conversation with the hospital about possibly getting on their system so there would be more symmetry between our health department and the hospital. But it just seems like because of things outside of our control, they couldn't get together on there to find a reasonable space where they could get all the information they needed. And I had hoped that the hospital could have a more included part of this, but just didn't work out that way.
Okay, sir. Any more questions or comments?
If not, I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, sir.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
And that is unanimous.
Item 4B is consideration of diversity, equity, inclusion, executive steering committee alternative holiday schedule recommendation. Mr. Holder.
Thank you, Ms. Cannon. This item was also presented at your February 11th agenda session and did not receive unanimous approval. It is the recommendation for an alternative holiday schedule from the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, or DEI Advisory Committee. During the board's August 13th agenda session, Commissioner Keefe introduced a proposed county policy on religious and celebratory holidays. The purpose of the policy proposal was to be more inclusive and to better allow staff to prioritize their individual days of observance. While the proposed policy would keep 12 paid holidays for employees, it would provide for county offices to be open an additional 4 days during the year. This would be achieved by designating 8 static days to be observed by all employees and by county offices being closed. So you can see the 8 static days listed in the slide. Then the remaining 4 employee holidays would become floating holidays that employees could observe as they choose. And those 4 floating holidays are listed as well. In an effort to be more inclusive, the proposal created an approval list of personal celebration days. Employees will be able to choose their 4 floating days from among the list of 22 personal celebration days that were identified. And while on this slide, this is not an exhaustive list, I did capture several of the holidays and/or days of observance not included in our current approved holiday schedule that were included in the proposal. I'm sure you can tell from this slide that acknowledgement of these holidays would create increased inclusiveness for our workforce. As a result of that presentation, and by unanimous vote of the board, the policy was sent to the newly formed DEI Advisory Committee for review and recommendation. This 22-member staff advisory committee, which includes a diverse cross-section of our organization, received its charge in September of 2020. The DEI committee approached their work very thoughtfully and diligently through the month of November. Although the task was a very daunting initial project for this group, they performed with great effort and outcome. In December, after extended debate and deliberation, the committee reached consensus to forward 2 policy options. two options for consideration to the DEI Executive Steering Committee. And just as a reminder, the Executive Steering Committee includes the county manager, her management team, as well as the two conveners of the committee, our general managers, Ms. Vicki Evans and Ms. Brenda Jackson. Those options that they forwarded, the two are here on the slide. There are also some backup discussion in your packet. The two options that they forwarded to the executive committee was to either, one, to keep the current holiday schedule but change the names of the religious holidays, and either one of the two, add a floating day for a total of 13 holidays, or take away Good Friday and add a floating day. That was their first choice, then their first option. And these are not in rank order. But the second option was to maintain 12 paid holidays, 10 of those being static, and 2 floating holidays. Based on the discussion that we received from the DEI committee, we reviewed the discussion they had, looked at the options that they presented, and based on that, the Executive Steering Committee offers the following policy recommendation to the Board of Commissioners. To keep the current holiday schedule of 12 approved holidays and add 1 floating day to allow for individual employees to recognize the observance of a day of their choosing. It is important to note that while this recommendation does not increase the number of days that county offices are open to the public, it also does not increase the number of days that were closed to the public. So that it would maintain 12 closed days, even though employees would receive an extra day that they could choose. And at this time, Mr. Chairman, I'll pause if there are any questions.
Are there any questions or comments for Manager Holder? Yes.
Mr.
Commissioner Key.
Chair, if you would allow me a little bit of time. You know, last spring and summer, our country and community went through a very dark time, and with the pandemic, social unrest, political posturing, and we found that our communities and our country were being divided. I think many people have a better understanding about the frustration that happens in some communities and believe that do not feel like they were being heard. You know, one of the things I found out in politics is it's easy to represent people who look like me, people who worship like me, people who have similar social and cultural goals as me. And what I found is hard. What is hard is to represent people who don't look like me, who don't worship like me, who don't have the same struggles that I've had, and they have their own struggles as they move on, because we all are different people. And you know, when the occurrence happened with George Floyd and some of the other things that happened, many government agencies, they were signing resolutions and talking about things. Well, at that time, spurred by some discussion from the chairman about an additional holiday, I chose to take my position as an elected official and present a program to the county commissioner that was very inclusive of individuals' religious affiliations, their cultural and social priorities, so that they were able to celebrate in the same manner as others. It was chosen to send that to the newly formed Diversity, Equality, and Inclusion Committee to make recommendations. Currently, right now, the state of North Carolina only authorizes 12 holidays per year, and they only recognize the holidays of a single faith, and thereby it forces employees and staff to take those paid holidays even though their personal religious holiday is not in alignment with their faith. To celebrate these days, they must take their vacation days or take time off. The program I presented would have required county staff to recognize the 8 holidays that were recognized by the federal government and the state government as static holidays, and allowed our staff to choose up to 4 holidays from a number of other recognized days that are important to them individually. These could be Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Ramadan, Eastern Orthodox Easter, Kwanzaa, or any other religious days. But they would also include cultural days, Indigenous Peoples' Day, Election Day, Juneteenth, Women's Suffrage Day, Inauguration Day, and others. I don't think it's the purpose of government to tell staff and their citizens which religious days are more important than others. This is the reason why we have separation of church and state. I wish this policy would have been more inclusive, but I don't feel like it was, because at the end of the day, we're still recognizing one particular religion and forcing others to participate in those religions. And to the group's credit, they did bring some options. But what it seems like has come out is there was an opportunity to say, okay, we're going to take these 12 days, and we're just going to add an extra day and let you do with as you feel. But it takes away from the whole idea of inclusion and equality in those when you're doing those things. So I really had hoped that there was an option on the table that we have 10 static days with two particular floating holidays. This does a number of things for us as a community. First of all, it allows Cumberland County to lead on inclusion, lead on equality, and lead on diversification, saying that we welcome everybody and their faiths and their cultural beliefs, and we're going to recognize them as we move forward. We're going to recognize them by resolution that we identify these holidays as important. This will be unheard of, and not only in the state of North Carolina, but in the nation. But to do that, we have to make hard choices in leadership. I originally asked for 4 days. 2 days is more than sufficient because a number of these religious faiths, their most common days, as in Christianity, as I grew up in Christianity, is Easter and Christmas, and you can have those with Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah, or your days of Ramadan as you move forward. But it also doesn't preclude that if you have cultural events or other social events, that you can use those. So personally, I was a bit disappointed that it came back and it looked like an opportunity to be a bit self-serving in adding that extra day, because I don't think that it really did the job of what we had hoped the diversity and equity and inclusion group had done. To truly do this and recognize, I would hope that the board may consider the other option of the 10 static days and 2 floating holidays for our employees to be included, to show the equality, that they can participate in their faith without having to worry about taking their own personal days off or vacation days to celebrate what's important to them. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Keith. Any other comments or questions?
Just a
Yes,
note,
sir.
Mr. Chairman, and I did back up so that you all could see it on the screen. Option 2 from the DEI committee, I think is what
Yes,
Commissioner
and that
Keith
is,
referring to.
I like that a lot, and it was the intent of my presentation, hoping that we could be more inclusive.
Yes, sir.
And before I ask for a motion to vote, I would like to say that one thing that I'm very proud of with this board is that we did take, and we are taking a step to be inclusive of everyone in this county. And to have taken the time to create a board of diversity, equity, and inclusion is a big step for us. It says a lot for this board. It says a lot that we are attempting, and we are going to be inclusive of everyone in this county. So I want to applaud this board for the steps that it has taken. I want to applaud the steering committee, the executive steering committee of the committee that was selected to bring those items back to us. Thank you for a job well done that was inclusive of staff as well as employees for taking their time to consider what we have presented to you. And so I'm very proud of each and every member of this board for going in the direction that we want this county to go in, favorable to inclusion. Is there anything else that you would like to say, sir?
No, sir.
Oh, yes, Mr. Booth. Commissioner Booth, I'm sorry.
My first question is to Mr. Keefe. Then are you in favor off of this, of number 2?
I think that if we were able to support number 2, we would be a leader in diversity, equality, and inclusion, not only in the state of North Carolina, but in the country.
Okay, then my other question now is to you,
Yes, sir.
what are going to be the names of these changes? You say, for example, and they only did one. So there's obviously 11 more to consider. What are we going to call Memorial Day?
So option 2 does not consider changing any names?
No, I'm looking at one.
Oh,
I'm saying
and
that-
option one?
That's the other or, is keep the current holiday schedule, but change the names.
Yes, sir.
Well, it says, for example, Christmas, but it doesn't talk about the other.
Yes, sir. The DEI committee focused on those holidays that are religious holidays to propose name changes.
Okay, what
To be
is
more
Thanksgiving?
inclusive.
It's not religious.
They did not consider that a religious holiday.
It's social.
Okay. So the only change then is Christmas.
Good Friday.
Under option 1, if the board were to consider option 1.
Okay.
Well,
But
option
under
one has two
option-
different parts. Option 1 has 2 different parts.
Right. Keeping the schedule and either one of the 2 bullets under that.
The second one being going back to 12 days, but take away Good Friday and add a floating.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay,
Thank you,
any
sir.
more? Yes, Commissioner Adams.
And now I hear Mr. Keith, but I think that, that committee, and I think you got to look at all of it, just a nightmare for management when you start talking about employees taking off some of days. I know we're on Zoom now and we're doing all this, but eventually they will get back to work. And if I was a manager in terms of that, it would be logistically a nightmare to be able to do. I think even the one floating day is going to cause some disruption. But I'm agreement that for that one floating day, I think that, Mr. Chairman, you were exactly right. When we created this committee, we took a stand that no other, anybody else did. We went more than just giving a resolution. We went to this and we created this. And, you know, one of the things that I got voted down on, which often happens, you know, I tried to put a commission on that board and everybody said, no, we're going to let the committee do it and take it to there and then bring it back to us. And that was going to be how they looked at this work. So I guess you're all right in terms of not putting a commissioner on there. And I think, so sometimes I'm
depends
just
which
wrong.
commissioner.
Sometimes I just commissioner.
Could you play that tape back? Part where he said, I think I was wrong.
Hey, look, sometimes you have to admit, Miss Angel Lanier got me the other day. It's just a long week for me already, and it's just Monday. But I do agree with the recommendation of this committee, which is that approval of the additional one floating holiday. If there's no other comments, I'd make that motion, Mr. Chairman, if you I'm ready. Approve the additional one floating holiday to the existing county holiday schedule, effective as the date of approval that may be used at the employee's discretion, taken on the day they choose, pending supervisor approval.
Okay, we have a comment from Commissioner Council.
Now, I can't hear with my mask on. Can't talk either. But wasn't the motion made and seconded?
Yes.
All right.
I just made the whole motion out so that the public would know exactly what the motion was.
So yours doesn't have any name changes or anything?
No, mine
Just adds a holiday,
That's right.
flex, kind of a flex schedule.
Yeah, for that one day, okay.
Okay, let's take the
Go
vote.
ahead. Can we have discussion on the motion?
Yes, sir.
From a pragmatic standpoint, Mr. Chairman, we really haven't done anything. Because what we're doing is we're maintaining the same thing, and what this is not doing is, it is saying, if you're celebrating these particular holidays, you are not included, but we're forcing you to take these days. We have not done what I believe the charge was to the Diversity and Equity and Inclusion Council. It almost seems like it's defending employee interest instead of diversity, equity, and what we're doing now is giving an extra day, but still not acknowledging the religious faith and cultural holidays of others that are in our group. We're simply not doing it. That's all my comment was. I think I know how this is going to go.
Is there any more comments or questions?
Chairman
And
Evans?
we've already, yes.
My apologies.
No,
May
go ahead,
I
ma'am.
confirm, was the motion from Commissioner Adams? Who was the second?
Commissioner
Lancaster.
Lancaster.
Thank you very much.
Let's call for the vote. All in favor?
Voting in favor, Commissioners Evans, I'm sorry, Chairman Evans, Commissioner Adams, Commissioner Lancaster, Commissioner Council, Commissioner Stewart. Voting in opposition, Commissioners Keefe and Commissioner Booth. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Manager?
Yes, sir. Item 4C is consideration of water service utility agreements with JFJ Investments for the Rufus Johnson Road subdivision. I'll ask Assistant Manager Tracy Jackson to present this item. This was also an item that was moved forward from the agenda session last Thursday.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. As you'll recall, JFJ III Investments has requested approval of an agreement for a 21-lot subdivision off of Rufus Johnson Road. They are seeking a connection to the Southport water system. There is adequate capacity for connection with a remaining buffer for the unserved parcels in that area. The agreement includes a disclaimer previously discussed, which was applied to a prior application from the same applicant. Staff recommends approval of this agreement, and we'll try to answer any questions you may have at this point.
Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am.
We're ready for any questions?
Any questions or comments for her? Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, and I'm just consistent, it's the Graves Creek Water and Sewer District. We've got the contaminated water out there, and then to turn around and to do this and let that happen, I think it's just, and I voted no the last time. I have to vote again no. I just don't think it's appropriate to be able to do that.
Any more questions or comments?
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second? All in favor?
Voting in favor, Commissioner Keefe, Chairman Evans, Commissioner Booth, Commissioner Lancaster, Commissioner Stewart, and Commissioner Council. Voting in opposition, Commissioner Adams. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, Madam Manager.
Item 5A is the nominations to the Cumberland County Juvenile Crime Prevention Council, and there are 6 vacancies.
There are 6 vacancies, and are there any nominations? Yes, sir, Mr. Adams.
Yes.
Commissioner Adams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Substance abuse abuse professional would nominate Stephanie Dixon for the member of the public representing interests of families of at-risk individuals, Maria Marta Conrad, persons under the age of 21, Trenton Hightower, the juvenile defense attorney, Michael Fiala, and the at-large representatives, Dr. Antonio Jones and Dr. Mark Kendrick.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Madam Manager.
Yes, sir. That brings us to the item 6, the board's appointments.
Commissioner, Chairman Adams, Vice Chairman Adams.
The appointments to the Equalization and Review Board, I would nominate the at-large position, Marva Lucas Moore, for the businessman, Durwood Clark, for the farmer, Wayne Collier, the home builder, Jason Robbins, and real estate agent, George Turner.
Okay.
I'll
Item
second that.
six- Excuse me?
This is on for action, isn't it?
Yes, this is a motion to
Okay.
appoint. Yes.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Unanimous.
Thank you.
The Transportation Advisory Board has 3 vacancies, Mr. Chairman. I would move to appoint the County DSS Director or her designee, Ashley Patterson, the County Planning Department Director or the designee, Rawls Howard, the MPO Representative, Justin Ritchie.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. Is there a motion?
That was the motion.
That was the
That was the motion.
That was the motion, okay, thank you. Item C.
This is the Cape Fear Valley Health Board of Trustees appointments. The first one is the motion to appoint the medical doctor nominees. That will be Dr. Michael Jones and Dr. Myron Strickland. I would move to appoint those.
All in favor?
Aye. Mr. Chair, I'd like to pull Jason Poole.
Thank you, Commissioner Keefe. Jason Poole will be pulled from the nominations of the trustees at the hospital. So that means that how many nominations do we have now, sir?
Motion to appoint one, and that would be the name of Marshall Faircloth.
All in favor?
That is unanimous. No, I'm sorry, all right. Do we have one or two motions on the floor?
Well, he just pulled that. I don't know if you have to have a motion to pull. He just pulled the name.
No.
So the only motion is to appoint Marshall Faircloth.
What about, did we vote on the doctors?
Yes, we did
yes,
that
sir.
already.
Yes,
Okay,
that was unanimous.
I made the motion, and Commissioner Lancaster made the second.
thank you. Okay. So voting in favor of Marshall Faircloth. Voting in favor, that is unanimous.
Nope.
No,
Except
it's
for
not.
B- Commissioner Booth. Commissioner Booth, your vote?
No.
Opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, that takes
Mr.
us
Vice Chair.
to the Alliance Health Board of Directors. The first motion would be the motion to waive the 2 consecutive term requirement, which is a policy of this board, but Alliance has a separate policy that they could do 2 3-year terms. So I would make a motion to waive our policy of the 2 consecutive term requirements.
Did you say that right?
I hope so.
You said 2 3-year terms. It's 3.
Yeah, that's our limit.
They have 3-year, they can do 3 terms. Thank you, Mr. Up at Alliance.
It's the only thing we've agreed on tonight.
Yeah. No, we can agree on a couple.
There's a bunch of stuff.
All the consent agreements.
Okay,
I just have a question.
yes, sir.
Of the other appointing boards or agencies or personnel, do they have the same, I know they may not have the same number of appointees, but is their term also 3 years? Is everybody that appoints positions there 3 years? Or some group only get a 2-year appointment, some get 4? Yeah, the Alliance. Everybody's a 3-year term? Okay. All right, thank you.
Yeah, okay, so is there a motion on the floor?
Yes, the motion to waive the 2 consecutive term requirements, Mr. Chairman.
All in favor?
That is unanimous.
Then, Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion to appoint Lotus Glossum to another term.
All in favor?
And that is unanimous.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Madam Manager.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We need to recess the Board of Commissioners meeting and convene the Grays Creek Water and Sewer District Governing Board.
Okay, we recess the Board of Commissioners meeting and convene the Grays Creek Water and Sewer District Governing Board meeting.
Yes, sir. This evening, there are 2 items on the Grays Creek Water and Sewer. The first being the consent agenda, which is approval of the September 21st, 2020, and the January 19th, 2021 Governing Board minutes.
Do we have a motion? Motion approved. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Unanimous.
Item 8 on the Grays Creek Water and Sewer District is an item of business. It's the agreement with JFJ III Investments that was just approved under the Board of Commissioners agenda.
Is there a motion? Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Voting in favor, Commissioner Keefe, Chairman Evans, Commissioner Booth, Commissioner Lancaster, Commissioner Stewart, and Commissioner Council. Voting in opposition, Commissioner Adams. Thank you.
And thank you.
Mr. Chairman, we need to adjourn the Grays Creek Water and Sewer District and reconvene the Board of Commissioners meeting.
We adjourn the Grays Creek Water and Sewer District Governing Board and reconvene as the Board of Commissioners meeting, the regular Board of Commissioners meeting.
Yes, sir. And our final item on the agenda is a closed session. 9A is an economic development matter pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143, 318, 11A4. In addition, we have an attorney-client matter pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-318, 11A3.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Well, I'll second it.
All in favor?
Unanimous.
We're now in closed session. We're back from closed session. Before I entertain a motion of adjournment, just want to remind each of you that tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock at DSS, we will have our strategic planning meeting, and hope that everyone could be there.
You need a motion to come out of closed session?
I did not do that. Thank you, sir. Is there a motion to come out of closed session? Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Is there a motion to come out of closed session?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second? All in favor?
Unanimous.
Okay. I think you all got the information regarding the strategic planning meeting tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. at DSS. Look to see you all there. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
Gosh.
All in favor?
Unanimous.
We are adjourned. Thank you all so much.